Russian-backed separatists in several Ukrainian regions have announced referendums on joining Russia. The self-proclaimed Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics in eastern Ukraine, as well as Kherson in the country's south, will begin voting Friday on officially joining the Russian Federation. The decision comes as Kyiv continues its counteroffensive in eastern and southern Ukraine. Joining us now from Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine is our correspondent Nick Connolly. Nick, tell us more about what's just been announced.
So far, the details are pretty scarce, Ben, but this is something that was expected. There's been talk of this for months, and various dates were announced and then shelved as Ukraine's advance pushed those Russian troops forward. Now it seems like they're in a big hurry. There's, I think, very little doubt as to what those results will look like, and then the next step being Russia to accept that entry into the Russian Federation. We've heard top figures in Moscow talk about accepting that request in kind of extraordinary speed. I think the interesting thing to look at is that Russia has played a game since 2014 using these entities in Donetsk and Lugansk, pretending that they are independent, even though their leaders have Russian passports, are often members of the ruling party in Russia. And now I guess the kind of usefulness of this game has been lost. Russia is, in Ukraine with the Russian army, and so now in a situation where Ukraine is really doing quite well on the battlefield, pushing Russia back at faster speeds than anyone could have expected. They're basically giving up on this pretense and looking to incorporate these territories into Russia. At least that's what their line will be in their interpretation.
The vote has been rumoured for months. Now this sudden need for speed. What sort of success or basis do you think there will be in this vote?
I mean, I think that the result is kind of pre-arranged. I think we know that there's very little chance of anything but a huge majority for joining Russia. I think the reason why this is happening now is partly internal. It's because Russia's having huge difficulties recruiting enough people to fight. And if the Russian authorities can claim, at least internally, that this is about Ukraine attacking Russian territory, at least territory that Russia claims is Russian territory, then it can mobilize, it can force people to fight who previously been able to get out of fighting. It's also about trying to kind of bank some territory in a situation where it looks to be losing ground here in Ukraine, showing Russian domestic kind of viewers what this is all about, what the point of this war has been. But also more internationally, it's about having the opportunity to threaten Ukraine with the use potentially of nuclear weapons, to say this is Russian territory. If you're going to attack us here, then we will use everything we've got to defend our own territory. Now, I don't think anyone outside Russia is going to go anywhere near this and recognize this, but that certainly is the kind of brinkmanship that seems to be coming into this. Russia seemingly convinced that the outside world, especially Europe, is not willing to escalate further, that it has the kind of greater tolerance, the greater willingness to go big and to kind of up the stakes here, and hope that somehow these kind of announcements force the European backers and American backers of Ukraine to come back to the table, to the negotiating table, and maybe call some kind of truce.
How are Ukrainian authorities likely to respond?
I think they're going to ignore it. We've seen how the Ukraine's army has been targeting Russian military installations in Crimea, another part of Ukraine that Russia claims is its own territory, has claimed as Russian since 2014. And we've seen consistently announcements from the US that they continue to see Crimea as Ukraine, and as such, the ban on using US-made weapons against Russian territory doesn't apply to Crimea. It won't apply to Donetsk and Lugansk, and so basically Ukraine will continue its military offensives, maybe even trying to speed things up a bit to get in the way of this kind of creeping Russian takeover in Donetsk and Lugansk.
Nick Connolly for us in Kharkiv, thank you. And for an overview of the fast-moving situation on the ground, here's DW reporter Joel Dalroy.
In a matter of days, Ukrainian troops have managed to roll back months' worth of Russian gains. And although they have slowed a little, they are not stopping as they push further east. Well, here's a look at how the military map has changed. At the start of the summer, in June, Russian forces were in charge of almost all of the territory, from Kharkiv in the north to Kherson in the south. But in early September, Ukraine launched its surprise counter-offensive operation in Kharkiv. And this is the result. They reclaimed almost all of the Kharkiv region there in the north, reaching the Russian border. And on Monday, they announced that they had crossed the Oskil River. Now, that puts Ukrainian troops on the doorstep of neighbouring Lugansk region. Now, that is an area that Moscow named as one of its intended targets of its invasion. And Ukrainian units are now moving towards several strategic cities that they lost to Russian troops just months ago. But these new territorial gains, they come with grisly discoveries. Near the city of Izium, officials are uncovering a mass grave. They estimate over 400 civilians and soldiers were buried there in recent months, some appearing to have been tortured. And it is the second such mass grave uncovered following Russian occupation. The first was near Bucha, near Kiev, where more than 450 bodies were found. And there are also fears of what might be found in Mariupol in the south. That is still under Russian occupation. Satellite images appear to show mass burial sites there too. Well, Russia denies it has carried out any atrocities or war crimes. Inspectors from the United Nations are heading to Izium to reach their own conclusions. So as Ukrainian troops hope to take more towns from Russia, there are fears of what they may find when they arrive.